Welcome you. My name is Yvonne Lawby. I'm with the Poughkeepsie Public Library District, and we're happy to host tonight's artist talk for LongReachArts exhibit over at the Boardman Road Branch Library. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Debbie Bine, and she will lead the presentation. I should say that this is being recorded, and I am going to ask everybody to mute themselves unless they are invited to speak by Debbie for now, okay? So that way we get a nice clean recording, and at the end, we'll open it up for discussion. You're welcome to enter questions as you go into the chat box. If you have a specific question for a specific artist, just put their name in the chat box next to the question, please. Okay, take it away, Deb.
Hi guys, I'm sorry about that. I don't know whose fault, but my computer couldn't get through to Zoom. So thank you for being patient. Thank you, Yvonne, and thank you everyone for coming to our event. We didn't schedule an opening reception due to COVID, so we're pleased to present the Zoom slideshow. Next slide. Yvonne, can you hear me?
Are you seeing the next slide? Oh, you're seeing me. Hold on.
I'm not seeing anything. I'm seeing my end.
Okay. Hold on. Bear with me. There we go. Can you see it now?
I have to put, yes, I do.
Okay.
But how do I do two screens on my thing? You have any idea?
I don't.
Okay. We're just gonna have to wing this. Oh, I got two screens, but they're not the right ones. Okay. Gosh. This is LongReachArts Signature Collection exhibit, which is presently at the Boardman Road Library in Poughkeepsie. What exactly is LongReachArts? Well, for nearly 40 years, LongReachArts has been Hudson Valley's premier artist cooperative. LongReach has exhibited extensively in the Hudson Valley art galleries, museums, art centers, and libraries. Our professional artists' achievements include public art commissions and exhibits across regional, national, and international borders. We have no brick and mortar gallery. Our members scout the region for potential exhibition venues. The member who finds the venue is usually in charge of the exhibit. The signature collection at the PPLD Boardman Road Library was my brainchild. I worked with each artist, and together we chose one example of their body of work to represent their signature style, either current or historical. Next slide, please. Ta-da! This is how it all came together on the Boardman Road Library Great Green Wall. One image from each of 15 members. Our signature collection showcases the wide scope of visual fine art from our talented artists, hung in a traditional salon style, no labels on the wall, works in varying sizes hung closely together to form a cohesive and balanced unit. The exhibition space at Boardman Library was perfect. Next, please. Our presentation today allows our artists to muse about their inspiration for the work in the exhibit and also allow us to show more of each artist's work. Many of our artists work in several mediums, as you will see in the slideshow. We will present our artists in alphabetical order. Participants can use the question-answer format in Zoom to pose questions and comments. Please use the artist's last name as a reference. I haven't, because of this mess up, I haven't been able to count the number of members we have with us today, but it's, I think 6 or 7, perhaps 8. Next, please. I have to take a drink. Ooh. Okay, we begin with our artist, Arlene Becker. Arlene resides in Rhinebeck and presently works in photography and collage. The waitress is shown on the screen. Unfortunately, it's only a detail. It's a bit larger than this with a little bit more color. I couldn't get a good image. Arlene was a noted and very fine sculptor for many years, practicing in Chicago and Santa Fe before relocating to the Hudson Valley. With limited space, she segued beautifully from sculpture to photography and collage. Next, please. Arlene's home is full of her wonderful works, both sculptural and photographic. You can see the scale of this piece in wood entitled Mountain. It is in her living room. Next, please. Arlene also made art furniture. This piece is entitled Earth Table. There is glass on the top surrounding the center square. It is intriguing. I don't think Arlene is with us tonight, but I didn't get a chance to see who is with us. So speak up if you are here. This is going to be awkward. Next, please. The next alphabetical artist is me. I will do myself later. Our next artist is Diane Christie. Diane works mostly in the abstract. And Diane lives in Kingston, by the way. She couldn't be with us tonight. This piece, entitled Isolation, is pastel and mixed medium. Diane couldn't participate tonight, so I will recite her comments from the exhibit. Isolation explores the emotional feelings of segregation and solitude and how both depended on one another to find my inner peace. Next, please. Diane states, my painting, Force of Life, was completed in 2021. It was begun at a time when the world was thrown into unknown reality of confusion and despair. Months later, we realized that a glimmer of hope can shed light, revealing the force of light is not to be underestimated. This fine work is on view at LongReachArts' sister exhibit during July and August at the new Unison Gallery on Paradise Lane in New Paltz. We'll talk more about this LongReach exhibit later. Next, please. Our next artist is photographer David Curtis. This piece featured in the exhibit is entitled Underground. David, can you expound on your inspiration for this visit, this image?
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. Great to be here and part of this show with my LongReachArts colleagues. And in this particular image, Underground, that's on the wall of the Boardman, this belongs to my collection of cityscapes and street photography from my wanderings of the city, New York City, where I'm drawn to the buzz of urban life and its often bizarre juxtapositions of people, time, and place. And to my eyes, this digital sepia-toned image, originally shot in a subway passenger tunnel, in part evokes the inevitable passage of time and the transience of life and living. That's what I feel about it. And this is a recurrent theme in photography, including my own. Next one, please.
Yvonne, the next.
Yeah, I'm on, yeah. And here's my street portrait of a Coca-Cola delivery truck driver on smoke break, a very different picture. And his unshaven face and unkempt hair hints, to my eyes, at the burdens of his job and life. And still he seems to be in the present as he savors his cigarette and his rest. Perhaps some of you are fashioning your own stories about him already from this captured moment. And next, please. And here's an auto reflection photograph of mine. It's a rather different piece. I also photographed the city, It's part of an ongoing series where I turn car surfaces into sectional canvases, alternating, converging universes grounded in the same reality. And the next one, please. And here's one of my more recent images from a collection on tree lives and their parts, or trees and their parts. And some like this one I digitally modulate so they may evoke unspoken, perhaps bizarre, perhaps even mythological symbols or stories in the mind of the viewer. So that's basically it for now, for me. I can answer some questions later.
Okay, David, that's great. Thank you. Our next artist is Carolyn Edlund. The work in our exhibit is entitled Hard Nut. Carolyn works in many mediums. Carolyn, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Oh,
thank you. This painting was part of a series based on fables, sayings, and proverbs. It was a challenging series to do because some, unlike this one, were very difficult to represent visually. The slideshow, well, I don't know, what is the next painting? Yes.
The next one is this one.
Yes, okay. This is called From Beginning to End, and it depicts life, death, and renewal using graphite. And it was for a show-themed metamorphosis. And I've found that in recent years, I've been far more interested in working on images that are a little bit different from a traditional landscape, although I do still many of those. But this was just lovely. I found the bird deceased on a lawn as I was walking my dog. Still in perfect form and still beautiful. The skull we found on a walk through a forest, already denuded of flesh, and it's fragile and not so. And of course, the egg represents the new life coming along. The next slide. This is gladiolus, and it is graphite pencil and white, blue pencil and white on a toned paper. I photographed this for, I don't think it's particularly relevant to the scene, to the image itself, but this happened to be a glad that was in a garden at Olana. So it has a little bit of more distinction. But I love plants, I love nature, and I also love to draw. So this was one of a few pieces done in recent times. Next. Okay, we have Isabel and Friends. These are both watercolors. They're fairly large. Isabel was done as a gift to her parents, very fortunate parents. And I chased her around the yard looking for opportunities and to get her in a good position to compose a painting from. And Friends, excuse me, is my daughter with Bouncer. That was the name of the horse, beautiful dappled gray. and they were at a jumping and dressage competition in the Litchfield area of Connecticut. And my daughter was in her teens, which she is not anymore, but I still enjoy looking at this.
Very nice, Carolyn. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Stotts Fuzzold. He's a watercolorist, a magnificent watercolorist, and he teaches at the oh God,
Woodstock School of Art.
Thank you, Stotts, Woodstock, for many, many years. Stotts,
Yeah,
can you tell us about your work? This one is Splendid River, and I bet we all know what river that is.
Yeah, that's the Hudson River, and it's a very kind of simple amount of information to try to show the kind of the massiveness of the Hudson and the atmosphere, and I think watercolors gives you that atmospheric quality. The transparency is so nice, and I paint the river all the time, so it's an enjoyable motif that we come back to. Probably all of us do in one way or another, come back to all the time. So you have another one, or is that it?
Yep, no, we have two more.
I don't think I can see them.
9W.
I got myself as the most important thing here. How do I get to it?
You don't see the screen?
No, I don't. I see me.
You see you.
Yeah, I see me. Hold on.
You have to go up to the top and choose a view. Choose a speaker view. Is that right, Yvonne?
Oh, it's view.
I just see myself. Sorry, guys.
I'm not sure why that is the case.
You have to turn the.
Try gallery view.
Stats, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so on my screen on the top right, there's something that says view, and if you click on that, you have an option for side by side. That might help.
I don't see view.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Upper right view.
Okay, I got it. There we are. I'm sorry.
There you go. Okay.
Technology, right?
Mm.
So this is 9W going down towards the Rondout in Kingston. It's a famous old church that's on the end of East Chestnut Street. So East Chestnut Street's a famous Kingston street where east and west, where in the 1800s all the wealthy families lived, and has a great view of the Rondout out to the river. And so this is a very design piece. There's a lot of thought about movement into it, and also a lot of thought about how to not say too much, how to represent it with only a minimal amount of information. So what's next after that?
We have more.
Okay, this is, everybody knows this one, right? Because you're all Irishmen. This is the Cliffs at Moor. We visited Ireland in about 10 years ago now, and I did this painting. Spectacular view of the going out to the North Sea, and the next thing after this is Iceland. So it's kind of an interesting thought when you're there, standing there, and it's a romantic, powerful place with strong winds, and again, very minimal attempt that's trying to get the essence of Ireland's coast with as little information as possible. So
You certainly do that well. We have one more.
okay. So this is one of my still lives. I do a lot of still lives in my classes, actually, teaching as demonstrations. Almost all the big ones. This is a big one. And almost all of them are done as demonstrations in my classes. So it's, again, in my mind, an attempt to state this motif fairly simply, as simple as I can, and lost and found edges. Everybody knows about those things. I'm trying to eliminate as many edges as I can, so you get passage between the objects, moving color around, usually kind of triangulating color, and a lot of there's a certain intuitiveness to them. I mean, when they turn out, they look like they were more planned than they are, but a lot of them don't turn out, and you never see them. They go into the trash. In fact, that's really one of the ways I work, is to do a lot of paintings and choose from what comes out of it. I don't really try to control it too much, and I kind of do a lot of them to try to end up with something decent, which is kind of pathetic when you think about it, but that's the way it is.
I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
You use
So that's the process.
a lot of paper.
Many are called and few are chosen.
Thank you, Stotts. Lovely.
You're welcome.
Now we come to Stacy Flint, who is here tonight. Stacy works in acrylic paints. She says that this work captures a special moment when quiet contemplation blends with a burst of bright yellow smiles, a pleasing combination. I certainly agreed with that. Stacy, did you make it tonight?
I am here, yes.
Good, great.
Yeah. I'd like to just read a little something, kind of an overview of what I do, as well as about this one, but I guess you already said what it is. So my thoughts: creating art is a passionate and sometimes bumpy journey toward authenticity. My inspiration is to paint in oil or acrylic on canvas with vibrant color and energy. This emotional work, painted in themes, uses imagery of people, pets, places, and objects from life and imagination, and reinvents them as a joyful expressionism. The mood may be quirky, laugh out loud funny, or harmonious. I want to inspire others by my love through art. I also paint portrait commissions. The painting in the show from 2018 is Sunflowers with Your Tea, and, which we had just said, but one can imagine drinking the tea, and with the presence of the joyful sunflowers, it awakens contentment that nourishes the spirit. In younger days, my art was a fun domestic narrative of figures in quirky chaos, referencing my alcoholic childhood home. With my own husband and children, the mood softened, but the fun figurative imagery continued. In 2008, I worked with a New York City gallerist and created a series of 11 New York City paintings, including Chrysler Building. So can we do the next slide?
Yeah, next slide.
Yes, there's Chrysler Building. In 2009, I accepted a public commission with Ulster County Area Transit, creating 5 36 by 48 canvases for their Kingston office. I guess we can do the next slide. The paintings feature staff and, didn't we do Riders on the Bus?
We did, it's the next one.
Oh, okay, all right. So that was one of the paintings featuring staff and passengers on the buses, real and imagined, including this one, Riders on the Bus. Now, the next one I'm going to read about is kind of a well-known painting of mine in a series I wanted to talk about. I didn't give you a slide of it though, and I sort of don't know why, but in 2013, I created my Mother series to balance unresolved emotions about my deceased mother. My painting, called Blooms, shows a serene woman at table surrounded by her loving pet family and cherished collection of objects, including a vase of blooming flowers. Outside, a cherry tree blooms. With this painting, I reinvent our challenging relationship into more joy, forgiveness, and love. I guess you can do the slide, the one of that's a commission, a portrait commission. It's like a house commission. I do houses, objects, pets, people, families, as well. So, and then I just wanted to talk about one more aspect of what I do. In 2015, I began painting the landscape at an artist residency near Montreal, which inspired me to paint my own beautiful Hudson Valley landscape. Since then, I have created many vibrant paintings of beautiful landscapes featuring land, water, and skies. And it's an honor to be an artist. I infuse my art with love of life, which I hope inspires others.
That's great, Stacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Okay, Claudia. Claudia Gorman is with us tonight. She's a photographer, and the work in our exhibit is entitled Untitled, with a subtitle of Anemone from the Beautiful Dead Flowers series. Claudia, can you explain your muse and talk about your work?
Yeah, I will start by talking about my work. This photograph of the spent anemone was taken with a medium format camera long ago, and the darkroom print was disappointing since the stem on the flower weighed it down. I sort of gave up on it. And then digital came along and I thought it was the devil. But then I realized that it was just another tool. And freedom was granted and a new image was revealed. So I originally entitled it Flight, but I prefer to leave it untitled to spark the viewer's imagination.
Okay.
So this is a large piece. It's 36 inches square.
And it's very commanding in our exhibit, and it on the top is ready to
Ready to fly. Yes. So onward to the next slide, please. Now this is I chose some images just to show you all the different things you can do with photography. And this is Innisfree Garden. It's a hilltop, and I got a couple of different cameras out, put them on a tripod. And first I used a pinhole camera, which is why it has those edges. It's why it's the size that it is. These are all film cameras. I also used a regular Holga camera, which has a little bit more clarity. So I removed the middle of the pinhole picture, which was soft focus, like the edges, and put in a bit of a sharper image of the middle. I thought it was just worked better for this particular image. So this is a combination of two different negatives put together, and that's what it is.
Very cool.
On.
And the next?
Now this is Sailing on the Hudson was photographed in Tivoli, black and white film. Then I go into the dark room and I make a print on a paper that's very porous. I tone the print and then I paint it with oils. So this is a hand-colored photograph, Sailing on the Hudson.
So it's painted with oil, Claudia?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
painted with oils.
Well, that's why it looks like an oil painting, I guess.
There you go.
And the next?
And finally, just to show people that I can do something other than photograph nature. This is Times Square during the pandemic. I spend a lot of time in the city. I have a couple of portfolios of different aspects of the city. This was a very eerie time. I mean, to walk into Times Square and not see anybody is just kind of weird, obviously. So I included this for that reason. And it was just one of those moments that worked. I had the image on the right that said masks. All the lights in Times Square, I'm sure everybody's aware, they're changing constantly. So at the point that said mask, and then this guy walked by Good Trouble with his mask on and nobody else was there. So it just said a lot to me about the pandemic. Fortunately, we're beyond that now. If you go to Times Square right now, it's packed again.
Let's hope.
Good thing.
Thank you, Claudia.
So I did write something, hopefully this will be brief, just to explain things a little bit further about my photography. I approach my subject with a camera and an eye for composition and reflection. Following my original thoughts, ideas, and perception of the subject, I continue to develop the final print in the digital or conventional darkroom. As Ansel Adams said, you don't take a photograph, you make it. I'm constantly inspired by the natural world if one takes the time to observe. That's my muse. Mother Nature so often provides me as an artist with a source of inspiration. I consider my process of seeing, my visual memories and meditations on nature to be a representational self-portrait. I'm also aware that most people miss quite a bit of what I tend to see. Therefore, one reason I make art is to encourage others to actually notice the overlooked. By creating art, I offer my observations to many people who might appreciate the image and then, I hope, perhaps gain some new level of respect and feel a sense of responsibility regarding caring for the world we live in, which desperately needs our attention now more than ever. We can't repair all the damage humans have caused to our planet, but there are many changes individuals can make to preserve and restore the beauty and mysteries of the natural world. Reduce, reuse, recycle, conserve, buy sustainably, locally if you can, less plastic, no pesticides, no herbicides, all wise choices. When I get frustrated and saddened by what damage has been done, I remind myself that life continues and life is beautiful. And that's all I have to say.
That was very, very lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next artist would be Trina Green. I can't tell who is in the room. I don't think Trina is here this evening. The work that's in the show is pen and ink drawing with added metallic powder and egg tempera. It's one of a series of her mandalas. Trina resides in New Paltz, by the way, and she explores many mediums, as we'll see in the next slides, which we're not ready for, but will be coming. Trina said that her mandala was created without pre-planning or altering. It flows directly from the unconscious. Before creating her mandala series, she filled in a small book with rhythmic doodles and repeating patterns. These became the big building blocks for each mandala. Chrysalises, cocoon, caterpillars, and finally the butterfly emerges. Each mandala is a prayer, says Tina. Tina has 2 more of these exquisite mandalas on display in our exhibit at the new Unison Gallery in New Paltz. The next slide, please. Trina has has much notoriety in our area, as indeed nationally, as a sculptor. This bronze is the poorhouse is, oh, I am just so blitzed here. It's the poorhouse monument entitled Aging Woman, and it is dedicated at the in 2019 at the Ulster County Fairgrounds in New Paltz. I Googled about the Ulster County Fairgrounds, which is on the site of the historic poorhouse, which if you Google it and read about it, it will really make you probably rather upset at how people were treated in the 19th century and before, but specifically the 19th century. The next slide shows her Sojourner Truth sculpture, also a bronze, which is at in the town of Esopus. I believe, I'm not sure where it is in Esopus, but I would think it's near the in a park of some sort.
It's right off of Route 9 in a little park on the left side if you're going north.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
9W?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry if I said 9, it's Route 9W.
Really incredible work, and we're sorry Trina couldn't be with us tonight. The next slide shows our artist Carol Leozidis. Carol lives in Poughkeepsie. She's a painter. This piece is oil on canvas with pastel. Carol, can you tell us about the inspiration for your work, please? Is Carol here? Carol, you have to unmute yourself. Does anybody see Carol? I can't see the screen.
She is there. I just asked her to unmute. So we'll see.
Okay, so you didn't hear what I said, right?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just saying Trina's a tough act to follow. Her wonderful sculpture of Sojourner Truth as an adult with a baby is going to be dedicated in front of the Sojourner Truth Library. New Paltz, my alma mater. So anyway, I'll just read what I wrote. An artist once said, "You paint your childhood." This observation does apply to me. I'll say how this applies later, because I'm not from Devonshire. Many of my paintings refer to the area where I grew up in the Chemung Valley in the southern tier of New York. My largest pieces are from a 1985 exhibit called Elmira. So could you put up East Hill?
Next slide.
Yeah, this one is 70 by 65. It recalls a view of my house and across the river up to the nearby mountain part of the Appalachian Plateau, where Mark Twain wrote Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, among other works. He's also buried in Elmira, in a study which now sits on the Elmira College campus. But those mountains behind this building is where the study is. The Chemung River is behind there. So can you show the next piece, Floodplain? Okay, this is a recent piece. The other one was acrylic. I'm now working with Holbein Duo Aqua water miscible oils, which I just love, love, love. This one is 37 by 40 and recalls that the Chemung was indeed a flooding river. On the day of the flood that occurred when I was a child, someone ran into our classroom just as the dikes broke. My school was on the river, and shouted, "There's going to be a flood, run home." Times have sure changed. Nowadays, I'm also producing paintings of central New York where I lived as a teenager. Could you put the next one up? This is Chittenango, and it's 36 inches square. Color relationships, particularly analogous color juxtapositions, are very exciting to me. References to remembered images, sometimes including figures, elicit my love of poetry. I particularly adore the work of Pierre Bonnard, the fabulous colorist, whose often uncanny works were inspired by memories as well. And I'll just mention how the first one, the one in the show, Flowers of Devonshire, applies to painting my childhood. My mother worked for a woman whose family owned Ingersoll Rand in Painted Post. And she gave her a little bottle of perfume as a gift called Flowers of Devonshire. I was really young then, but I kept that bottle. And as a child, I always loved flowers. I loved color. So I always imagined beautiful, colorful flowers growing along roadways in Devonshire. And then I actually researched and found mainly it's snowdrops, white snowdrops. So that's how this painting relates to painting my childhood. That's it.
Very nice, Carol. Lovely memories. Our next artist is Ellen Metzger O'Shea. She resides in Poughkeepsie and Nantucket. Are you here, Ellen? Ellen? Hi, Ellen.
There, can you hear me?
There. Yep.
Can you see me?
I don't know. I can't see anybody. Yvonne, do you
Yeah,
see?
we can see you.
Okay.
Oh, I can't see me. This painting is a tree that I have looked at in Nantucket, and I think most of the work that I have for you to look at tonight are my Nantucket paintings. What I was going to explain is that I have been painting trees and hills, flowers and water my whole life. I grew up by the water as a kid in the Finger Lakes south of Rochester, and we just really spent our whole days outside in the grass and the flowers and the trees. And when I was about 11, I started drawing and painting, and my father was also an artist, even though he was a plumber, and he also did paintings in a very small little studio in our basement. And I was really encouraged by my father and my mother and the whole family, because they were all kind of artisans in some way. And so I have just continued, and I think I like to really work outside the best, but there's a lot of challenges with the plein air. So one year I spent 2 whole years, not overnight, but 2 whole years doing Burger Hill. And that was during the time that we had those paint outs. And after those 2 years of trekking up the hill and down the hill and painting all my paintings, I figured that I had enough inside me of the outside that maybe I could begin to take some pictures. So there's a tree from Nantucket. This is another tree. And sometimes what I do, I don't do what Stotts does. I don't throw my paintings away. I just take the paintings I don't really like and I turn them around so I can't see them.
Want to mute?
And then a little bit. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, a few months later, I turn my painting back around, and sometimes I can work on it again. Other times I have to just take that painting and turn it upside down or sideways and start working on it. Not the same subject. I use the colors. In this particular one, I use the clouds. This is another, the trees in Nantucket are beautiful because they're all windblown, and they're all of really beautiful shapes. Next one. Another Nantucket, and the clouds, the skies are gorgeous there. All you got to do is sit by the ocean and see those gorgeous skies all the time, or the moors, or there's a lot of open land in Nantucket, a lot of conservation land, and many areas where you can just hike and sit and look. And so and there's loads of these dirt paths that you can follow, not for cars, for feet. Okay, next one.
Next.
Another island tree. This actually looks like the one with the yellow sky. This is also an example of a canvas that's reused. I don't know what I painted under it, but there was a really great texture there. So for me, the plein air, the other thing that I realized when I was thinking about talking about my work was that as I continued doing my art through my life, I noticed that my life has gone step by step according to the teachers that I've had. Each teacher, and I think I've had about 6 very significant art teachers, not in college, one in college, but then after I left college and I would go to workshops, or I did Art New England, and I studied with an artist from UMass and other artists, other teachers. They've all given me something new to build my skills on. And so I'm just so grateful for my teachers. And I'm a teacher. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And although, Ellen, the piece, the yellow sky on our wall is diminutive,
Yes.
it commands a great presence because of its bright colors.
Well, thank you, Deb. I noticed it was the smallest one.
Wow, I liked it.
Thank you.
And we have, next is Carol Pepper Cooper. Carol resides in Kingston, and we chose a pastel with,
Hi, here I am.
hi.
And I want to tell you first that the audio is so peculiar that I'm going to struggle through, and I hope you can understand me. Do I sound all right?
Yes, just fine.
Okay, so anyway, I'm generally considered a colorist, so I was surprised when Debbie chose this piece as my signature piece. But it was a really good choice because I think it epitomizes my approach, my attempt to be open, to let the piece tell me what it wants to be. And I will explain further in reference to this piece. Long ago, when I was a referential artist, or at least a representational artist, or really a referential artist, a friend took a photograph of cows grazing in a field and was dismayed to discover that it was a double explosion. And she wanted to throw it out. I'm having trouble because the echo is such that I'm hearing myself twice, but bear with me, please. I liked the double exposure. I was intrigued by the conflation of the cows and the food that they were eating. And I was glad to take it from her and try to make a drawing. Well, the drawing was not good enough to show, but I felt interesting enough to keep. And thank goodness I did, because 2 years ago I found it. I changed the orientation, making it horizontal now, and I disregarded the subject matter because I was now working non-objectively, and I let it play with me. So it led me, and it said, spark me up with red. So I injected some red, half hiding it in the red, in the black and the white. And that feeling of a lurking something caused me to call this piece presentiment. And and that was fine. But what was it a presentiment of? Well, then came the pandemic. And it turns out that my first pieces that were in reaction to the pandemic were black, white, and red. And so I realized that this piece fit right in as really the first of the series. So that's an example of what I mean when sometimes what I do is very different from what I think it will be, and is a surprise to me. Debbie, I'm going to ask you to show the slides. I don't think I'm going to comment on them because it's just too hard with all the reverberation that's coming in.
Carol,
Actually,
and I will say,
I will make one statement that covers all of them, and that is when we were asked to think about our muse, I felt that it was, in my case, my inner life. And I tried to create worlds that the viewer can enter and explore. And Debbie, I hand it back to you.
Okay. Well, Carol has a huge body of work, and when I met Carol, probably it was 10 years ago or so, Carol, and before I was a member of LongReach, or when I became a member, thanks to Carol and to Ellen. And I went to several of Carol's exhibits, and I remembered these two pieces in particular: City Lights, which is a pastel, and the next one called Journey, which is pastel and graphite. And they made such an impression on me that I've remembered them ever since. So I was glad we could include them here. Carol's more recent work is darker in nature. I think she would agree with me. A lot of blues and blacks, and this one I just struck me as being very very appealing, very appealing. Thank you, Carol. We next come to Nancy Scott. Is Nancy with us tonight to talk? I can't see, Yvonne. Do we have Nancy here?
She is here. I've asked her to unmute if she'd like.
Okay, well, why don't I start this?
Okay.
Nancy's a resident of Poughkeepsie. Originally, when I put this together, I didn't think she could join us tonight. Nancy?
Yes.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. You can? Yes?
I can.
Oh,
yes.
Good. I've painted since I was a child. I used to paint the walls in our basement and my parents' home. And then after raising a family, I was not able to do it. But I went back to it, and I became much more interested in non-representational work. In other words, this one is called Rhythms, and it's a white archival paper with black India ink, gestures, minimal gestures of how I might be feeling at the moment. I will do a whole series of these, and this is just one that I selected because I wanted something that was not too large to go on the walls at the library. I also work in large paper sculpture, They are 7 feet in height, perhaps about a foot or a foot and a half wide, where I have bought a whole series of handmade papers in a place in New York City, which I've had for many years. And I combine those papers with handmade papers that I've made myself. And I recreate a tapestry of papers on 6 to 8 foot height pieces that hang from a wall. And as I say, I consider them paper tapestries, but I also work in with that paper tapestry, calligraphic gestures, watercolor paintings that are embedded in the piece itself. I'm sorry I don't have examples of this. I wasn't prepared to show that much of my work. So,
Well, I would like to say that something Nancy said to me about her work. By introducing my own calligraphy on white handmade paper, I created dialogue of black form on white space that renders its own rhythm. I just love that statement, Nancy. Nancy,
thank you.
We have another work that is shown. It's called Cascade.
Yes, that's Cascade. Again, now you can see that I've integrated a commercial acid-free large black field that I've folded and cut the edges, and embedded on the top of that are handmade papers that I collage the paper and put it through a press, and it becomes a piece in itself. And then I glue that to that field, and I created these other pieces of handmade paper that have dyed, and I've not only dyed them, but I've painted on them, and I've torn them. And it's a feeling of dropping, falling, as you would feel in a grand waterfall. And I like also the ins and the outs of the red against the white, the black against the white on this large black field that's folded over to sort of a gesture in itself to act as a field for the whole piece.
Run away. Thank you, Nancy. I'm so glad you could join us. Our next artist is Marlene Wiedenbaum.
I don't know why all this shit is here. Oops, I gotta be careful because went away. We're unmuted. Oop.
Okay. Marlene resides in High Falls. She's a renowned pastel artist, very much involved with land conservation. She says the following about her work. My ongoing series, Sacred Ground, is a collection of landscapes in parks, conservation areas, preserves, etc. in the Hudson Valley.
Menu. Watch now. Tab. 1 of 7.
That reflects my support and admiration for the many organizations doing this important work. My own property connected to the Mohonk Preserve and overlooking Minnewaska State Park has inspired the Rock Hill series, my personal tribute to land preservation and planned development. The next slide shows her work, Mohonk Rail Trail. It's also pastel. I just find her work totally amazing. And on the next one is Rosendale Rail Path. I want to walk down these lanes and just marvelous, marvelous representations. Thank you, Marlene. Now we come to Carol Wolf. Carol resides in Hyde Park. And since she retired from being the force behind Mill Street Loft, she has had time to make art again. Carol, are you here to talk about your work, or do you want me to do it? I wasn't expecting she would be here. What she says about this work in our exhibit, which is called Banjo Girl, is that my quoting Carol, my artistic approach is organic and explores the visual language of of line, shape, texture, form, and tone. Banjo Girl stimulates an inner dialogue of thoughts and emotions that form a powerful statement of textural surfaces, linear imagery, overlapping planes, sharp contrasts, and angular gestures, evolving a strong dynamic interplay of positive and negative shapes. The next slide shows some Carol's, I think, more recent work, her work with pastels. We have a lovely selection of 3 of her works in this style on display at the exhibit at Unison. She also works in the next slide, Yvonne. She paints. I'm not sure what the mediums are here, but we stole these from our Facebook page so that we could get some representations of Carol's work.
I believe Carol just unmuted herself, so maybe she wanted.
Did. Oh, good. Carol?
Well,
what might that be?
Maybe
Carol,
not.
are you there? I guess not.
Okay, I'll mute her and we can continue.
Okay. Now we come to me, and we're winding up our presentation. Not much more to go. I work in textiles and fiber, and I only have 2 pieces that are framed. One of them, this piece I put in the show. I felt that since all pieces were framed, that I needed to put something in a frame, but this was already in a frame. So Echoes of My Mind is just what it says, I guess. As an improvisational artist, I experiment with various and diverse fibrous materials, assembling them in a way that pleases me. It's a mindful and fanciful pursuit, always gratifying when it forms something cohesive that expresses an idea and allows others to interpret their own meaning. That's basically how I work with everything. My next slide is probably what I feel is my signature piece. It's been on display nationally several places, and it hangs in my house. It's a diptych. It's machine pieced and quilted. I originally named it Generation Gap, but in talking about it over the years, I've kind of become more comfortable to a title of Then and Now, a reflection of how my work evolved from traditional quilting on the left side to an improvisational fiber artist on the right side. And my next slide is my high fiber diet breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is a three-dimensional triptych in fiber and found objects. Years ago, they used to call this soft sculpture. I just had a great deal of fun doing this. The individual wooden boxes measure 9 by 9 by 3.5 inches deep. I am very pleased. So it's 30 inches wide as displayed here and 9 inches high. I'm very pleased to note that this has been accepted into the National Juried Show at Barrett / The Artifact, entitled Luscious, Tasty, Delicious. The opening reception is a real opening reception, not virtual, and that will be on August 7th at Barrett House. Next, please. I talked earlier about our sister exhibit. It's a wonderful exhibit at the new Unison Gallery, which is on the east side of New Paltz, right bordering the thruway property. We are displayed in 3 rooms. The light is perfect. The name of the exhibit is Traces of Light. It will be on view through August 27th, and we will be having a closing reception on August 27th from 4 to 6. So come and enjoy our refreshments with us. You can also visit us on our website, longreacharts.com, and our Facebook